Tonight, prison death. A convicted murderer from Fort St. John dies in jail. Standoff. Police in Fort St. John respond to shots fired. And public art. The city of Fort St. John rolls out art installations. Well, good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with a convicted murderer from Fort St. John has been found dead in prison. Correctional Services Canada confirming John Wendell Keeler died at the Kent Institute in Agassiz. And a warning to our viewers, some of the information in this story is disturbing. Now, the 40-year-old was serving a 4-year, 10-month manslaughter sentence. He was found guilty for the murder of his common-law partner, Sarah Ford, near Fort St. John back in 2020. Keeler was originally charged with second-degree murder and indignity to a body. However, a BC Supreme Court judge later ruled that Crown prosecutors had failed to prove his intent to kill. He was then convicted of the lesser charge. The homicide occurred in a bathroom where Keeler stabbed Ford with a multi-tool. After she died, Keeler drove to a gas well site near Buick Creek, and he buried her body and threw the multi-tool into a nearby body of water. Now, if an inmate dies of natural causes, the Correction Service usually says so. But in this case, no cause of death has been provided. Keeler had been in prison for less than a year before his death. The Fort St. John police called to a home in the early morning hours this morning after a report of shots fired. Officers arrived at the scene in the 8600 block of 96th Avenue. Just after 5:30 this morning, Mounties say they immediately discovered evidence consistent with gunfire. Now, police say they later learned there had been an exchange of gunfire at a residence in the area. Officers had the home surrounded with guns drawn, according to witnesses. The 4 people inside were uninjured, but subsequently arrested for weapons-related offenses. Now, investigators say they also discovered firearms and firearm paraphernalia inside the home. Police believe this to be a targeted shooting related to gang activity and the drug trade in Fort St. John. Anyone with any information in this case is being asked to call Fort St. John Mounties. And the City of Fort St. John unveiling a number of public art installations. City officials say the goal is to transform community spaces and to celebrate the creativity of residents. Murals have been painted along with artistic bike racks have been installed across the city. Utility boxes have been wrapped along with other creative measures to enhance the urban experience. The city says the initiative will also support local artists and will help deter graffiti and vandalism. And the village of Pouce-Coupe announcing the bank stabilization project at the lagoon has been completed. Now, over the past year and a half, crews have been working at the site to mitigate the effects of erosion and infrastructure risk. Village officials also saying the work will also act as a long-term protection for the wastewater treatment system. The project was in response to the 2016 flood. The village received a grant of just over $3 million to complete phase 1 and 2 of the project. Mayor Danielle Veach says, while investments in lagoon and wastewater infrastructure are often far from the minds of residents, projects like this enhance the future of the community and they provide the services that residents depend on. Well, a private member's bill to prohibit publicly funded employees from making land acknowledgements didn't get very far in the legislature this week. MLAs overwhelmingly voting it down in an unusual show of opposition for a first reading. CTV's Rob Buffum has the story.
I just want to start by acknowledging the Kwanghan speaking people's territory.
Land acknowledgements, often given at the start of meetings and press conferences, were the target of a bill tabled Thursday by the One BC party leader Dallas Brody.
Land acknowledgements are the anthem of a suicidal nation.
The bill aimed to prohibit land acknowledgements by publicly funded employees, including in schools, that deny the sovereignty of the Crown within British Columbia or that attribute collective guilt to individuals based on race, ancestry, or the actions of Canadian historical figures.
They're repeated ritualistically to instill the belief that our country is illegitimate.
Breaking with convention, the bill didn't pass first reading. Most Conservatives, including its House Leader A'aliya Warbus, joining the NDP and Greens in voting it down.
If we start to deny our history, then we can't move forward. So the truth is, Indigenous people were here. These are the lands of the Lekwungen people, and it does not hurt anybody to acknowledge that fact.
2 Conservatives did vote in support of first reading.
I think we should go through the substance of the bill. I think British Columbians deserve to know what is in these bills that get put forward.
We support everyone's right for freedom of speech, ironically, to be able to bring forward a bill.
Brody expressed concern that land acknowledgements involving references to stolen land set a dangerous precedent for private property rights battles.
We are grooming ourselves into the surrender of our province.
Nobody is forced to make a land acknowledgement, but to try to ban somebody's freedom of speech to do that is gross.
The bill voted down after first reading will no longer progress for further debate in the House. Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.
And as the BC General Employees Union strike continues to impact services right across the province of British Columbia, Alberta is facing its own labor showdown. On Monday, Danielle Smith's government plans to introduce back-to-work legislation, potentially forcing 50,000 teachers back to the classroom. CTV's Mark Villani has the details.
Calgary teachers are arriving home after a rally outside Alberta's legislature. It's quiet now, but just hours earlier, they were joined by thousands of other educators, hoping the province heard their calls for action.
If they didn't, they must be tone deaf. Our working conditions, children's learning conditions, we can do better.
We need more teaching assistants. We need to reduce the class sizes. Please listen to us.
Alberta's government says it is listening, offering wage hikes of 12 to 17%, 3,000 new teachers, and 1,500 educational assistants, all of which was rejected. And now Premier Danielle Smith is implementing back-to-work legislation on Monday.
It has an impact on Albertans that we are going to suddenly start using clauses within legislation that restrict our rights.
The Alberta Teachers Association says it hasn't seen the details of the bill and that it's seeking legal counsel to determine next steps as it calls for further negotiations.
Instead of addressing what is the real crisis in education, they are choosing to silence it.
I don't think we should go. No, just saying we're going back with no new deal, it's not sufficient.
But if teachers refuse to go back, it could be deemed illegal.
Is this a signal of an erosion of labor rights?
Labor experts say the legislation could become law by Monday night, compelling teachers to return to classrooms within about 48 hours. At that point, they could either enter binding arbitration with a third-party mediator or challenge the government's bill. If that's successful,
they would then need to proceed to another strike vote to create the conditions by which they could legally strike under the current environment.
But heading back to work without a deal, an unimaginable thought for some teachers.
It's just basically a slap in the face.
The Alberta government has settled a lawsuit with a coal company after an about-face on mining in that province. Evolve Power will receive $95 million of taxpayer money. That follows the decision by the province to revoke coal mining licenses in the Crow's Nest Pass. Another company, Atrium Coal, will get $142 million from the province after it lost its coal license. Well, the U.S. president has delivered an unexpected blow to Canadian industries. Donald Trump announcing late last night he's terminated the trade talks with Canada. He says the decision is over an anti-tariff ad that was paid for by the Ontario government. Annie Bergeron-Oliver has more on the fallout.
Rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition.
Ontario's $75 million ad featuring the voice of the late Republican President Ronald Reagan was only on the air for about a week, but it appears to have hit a nerve. The U.S. president repeatedly attacking the ad, saying Canada has fraudulently used an advertisement, which is fake, featuring Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs. Based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated.
What happened is one of the leaders in Canada was running ads in the United States on tariffs that took President Reagan's words out of context.
But there is skepticism even among Republicans that the ad alone is to blame for the terminated talks.
The fact is that the negotiations with the Canadians have not been very collegial. They've not been going well. I think the president's very frustrated.
Canadian negotiators seeking relief for hard-hit sectors like steel and aluminum were just in Washington. And as late as Tuesday, Canadian sources were telling CTV News a trade deal was close and progressing well.
We can't control the trade policy of the United States.
Prime Minister Mark Carney, who is off to Asia, where he will be attending global summits alongside the U.S. president, says Canada stands ready to talk.
We stand ready to pick up on that progress and build on that progress when the Americans are ready to have those discussions, because it will be for the benefit of workers in the United States, workers in Canada.
The Conservative leader lays the blame on the Prime Minister.
The responsibility rests with the national government and its head, and that's the Prime Minister. And Mark Carney has broken his promise.
The advertisement will run as scheduled during the first 2 World Series games. But the Premier's office says that in speaking with the Prime Minister, Ontario has decided to pause its U.S. advertising campaign on Monday. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
And as Donald Trump is being accused by some of simply having a high-stakes temper tantrum, the fate of several crucial Canadian industries hinges on getting those trade talks back online. Now, from lumber to the auto sector, steel and aluminum, all are facing immense pressure from U.S. tariffs. Rachel Aiello now on the reaction from industry leaders.
Canadian industries impacted by the trade war are trying to roll with the latest punch from U.S. President Donald Trump.
It's a never-ending story of ups and downs, and this is one of the downs. So we're looking forward to the next way up.
The aluminum sector is among those hit the hardest. Trying to take this setback in stride, it says the longer tariffs last, the more impact will be felt south of the border.
Which will just keep growing the pressure on the administration to find a way out of this situation.
Similarly, the steel industry says it's waiting for further details to be made clear and will continue to work to find a path forward that works for the sector. Before Trump's termination, Canadian officials were working towards securing sectoral deals. Today, the industry minister says the American administration's unpredictability comes as no surprise.
The question is not how I react, but what do we do? And my answer to that is head down. We need to concentrate on what we can control.
But the auto sector says any delay in getting a deal could be dire.
We can't wait until July 2026 for a new USMCA. We can't wait until tomorrow for a new USMCA. The dominoes are now falling.
With the Prime Minister saying Canada stands ready to resume negotiations, business leaders say a Team Canada approach is needed to find a path back to the bargaining table.
And we need to make sure that everyone is aligned with what's taking place, recognizing that some may get some relief before others do.
This is not the first time Trump has abruptly ended negotiations with Canada in a social media post. In June, he called off trade talks effective immediately, citing the digital services tax. Later that month, Carney scrapped it, and talks resumed. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
And in other business news, WestJet is rolling out a new cabin design, and for some passengers, that means paying more just to lean your chair back.
It seems like over the last 20 to 30 years, what airlines have done is sort of piece out different parts of the flight experience and charge customers for different parts. What's next? Are they going to charge you to use the washrooms?
The airline is overhauling 43 of its Boeing 737 aircraft. They have purposely removed the reclining option from its economy seats. To sit back, passengers will need to book premium or extended comfort seats. WestJet says the changes will save space, allowing even more passengers per flight. The first updated aircraft enters service later this month, with the rest expected sometime early next year. All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back after the break with a look at your weekend weather.